High above this quiet place under the trees, the roar of one jet after another rises and subsides like the restless surf of an ocean, fouled with floating petroleum, each flight just beginning to fade as the next surges over, while I sit surrounded by an invisible cloud of testifying crickets. You can deny it to yourself in every bubble of carbon dioxide you exhale, they chorus in their ancient counterpoint and harmony. But we can't pretend this is the same world our ancestors shared with yours since the beginning. Did you forget? How long did you imagine you could go on pumping out the fumes of a billion tailpipes and smokestacks without altering the chemical composition of the sky? Stealthy and slow, lapping up another inch of beachfront, the sea level rises steadily through the night. High tide washes through the streets of Miami. London barricades the banks of the Thames. Island nations from the Maldives to the Marshalls prepare to surrender their sovereign homelands to the sea. Meanwhile, somewhere out on the Atlantic, air currents swirl counterclockwise, drawing salt water up into turbulent vapor as they pass over the warm waves, spiraling inward toward a center of inexplicable stillness, a single eye in the brow of the storm, surrounded by stampeding circular winds spanning 500 miles, spinning 200 miles an hour, twisting and whipping in unpredictable directions, until it predictably intersects a vulnerable stretch of coastline, where the protective shield of wetlands has been replaced with beachfront condominiums. Now, as the sea warms and fresh water dilutes the salt, any tropical cyclone can turn into the rampaging one-eyed monster the ancient Greeks named Cyclops, and the weatherman simply calls Category 5. Melting under the winter sun, the glaciers of Norway and Iceland and Tibet shrink into mere postcards of themselves. Tourists stand in line at Glacier National Park to see them before they're gone. Massive islands of ice break free from the Antarctic ice sheet, like renegade whales abandoning their families to travel on alone. Starving polar bears float away on orphaned floes, lost among the icebergs of the Arctic Sea. What if a hostile foreign power launched a surprise attack tomorrow at sunrise, and our leaders answered only with excuses and lies, more excuses and more lies, because they all had lucrative private investments in enemy shipyards and munitions plants? Climate is just a fancy word for weather. The weather is always changing anyway. Nobody trusts a scientist who brings bad news. A hurricane making landfall is good for the economy. Even the laws of physics can be overturned by a friendly judge. And no international agreement will stand up in court if it unfairly burdens those who've grown rich laying waste to the earth. Just read the fine print. Like a vengeful army of suicide bombers, wildfires ravage the Texas Panhandle, overrun British Columbia and Oregon, overwhelm the brave defenders of Southern California, storming ridge after ridge, swallowing whole towns and spitting out cinders. New Zealand and Australia, France and Portugal battle their own blazing insurgencies. No one understands why the woods and fields are so angry. Meanwhile, a many-colored serpent 8 lanes wide crawls in sinuous curves across the land, each glittering scale dreaming it's the star of its own TV commercial. A fantasy of freedom and conquest, speed and precision and grace. From sea to shining sea, the oil rigs and pipelines and refineries quietly spew their petrochemical poison into the water that human bone marrow uses to make blood. Burnt hydrocarbons ascend into the heavens like a demonic host. Asthmatic children struggle for one more breath, and every year is hotter than the year before. Everyone in the world knows it is the manifest destiny of every American to freely burn the earth's reserves of oil, coal, and gas, blowing leaves off the lawn and lighting up every inch of the night. The freedom we fought for in war after war turns out to be the all-too-human right to use up and throw away our only world, one plastic spoon and styrofoam cup at a time. and everyone in the world wants to be an American. Drought magnifies the sun burning over Central America, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, baking the soil to a crust of rock and dust. Drought drives the farmers from their dying fields and orchards to the cities, feeding the flames of famine and frustration. Refugees clog the roads, going any place that will take them, a procession of sanctuary seekers that stretches indefinitely into the future. But there is no asylum on a warming planet. The atmosphere grows steadily more volatile, less stable, like molecules of water in a pot about to boil. A little nervous at first, gradually aggravated, finally frantic, ricocheting from extreme to extreme. Record-breaking snowstorms pile confusion on top of disinformation, on top of ignorance, on top of denial, all of it resting on a firm foundation of habit, dug, reinforced, poured and hardened in the sandy soil of human arrogance. You can tune in the news channel of your choice, the crickets chant from their primeval temples in the underbrush. You can memorize and regurgitate all the slogans and jingles, sound bites and scriptures, affirmations and incantations it takes to persuade yourself you live all alone in a world you invented. We'll keep on patiently reminding you, we don't live in your world. You have always lived in ours.